Test 1, 2. All right. Again, hi everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. Um, my name is Strahil Velchev, and I make electronic music. But a lot of people know me as the artist KiNK, and people think of me as a producer and also live electronic music live performer. So today we're gonna talk about how I spend my time in the studio, how I spend my time on the road, and for me it's gonna be very difficult to stay only one topic and, for example, talk only about the studio, because the results I'm getting with my machines are influenced by the place I live, by the way I live, the places I visit, the struggles I have on the road, and so on and so on. So, excuse me if not everything goes very smooth. I'm a little bit nervous at the moment. That's my choice of weapon of expression. Normally, is my instruments. I don't feel very comfortable talking, but at the same time, I've been doing this for a while. I think I managed to get a good experience, and I think it's very important. It could be very valuable for the people, for you, and those who are online to get some information firsthand. And at the same time, for me, it's very important to hear your feedback, because I assume many of you are already very prepared. I guess many of you are DJs and producers and already touring, I guess. And I'm constantly learning. Basically, I am on the road with my live setup, which stands behind me, with this format for about 10 years now. And still my schedule is I'm playing in the weekend, and during the week I'm fixing whatever goes wrong and trying to figure out how can I be able to perform again next weekend. So so as much as maybe I can give you good tips, also your ideas and recommendations could be very useful for me. So today I would be very grateful if we can do it two ways. I don't want to just talk. I would love to hear your not only questions but tips and recommendations, because yeah, for a very long time I thought I know everything, but yeah, with the experience I realized that that's not the case, and also I'm not that young anymore, and I still have the fire, but the way I have a desire to make music is very different than it was 20 years ago. I just turned 41 a couple of days, and I'm very comfortable with my age, but still I wish to get energy from younger people, and to see how people less prepared and less established actually having more fresh ideas. I'm pretty sure that when somebody is not carrying the weight of too much luggage of knowledge, actually can be fresher. So yeah, let's have a chat about music, and let's leave this place with more knowledge altogether. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I live in Bulgaria, in Sofia. Sofia is my hometown, and Bulgaria was a communist country till 1989, and in the early 90s we became a democracy, and suddenly everything became much more open. And before that, any kind of Western culture was pretty much restricted. And however, we got the freedom, but we haven't got good financial ability to import that culture. So we had some we had some music. There are a couple of guys and girls DJs. They would use really strange methods of bringing records to Bulgaria and to Sofia. One very influential DJ, his name is Yasen Petrov. He would he was a friend with a flight attendant, and she would just buy records when she goes to New York or whatever. She would just buy random records, and that would be a source, or the only source for us. And also, I was listening to this radio station. It's called Radio France Internationale, and during the daytime, it was a political radio station. But during the night, they would, in the weekends, they would transfer radio shows from Radio Nova, where Laurent Garnier normally would mix. And yeah, I had a very little source of music, and I guess that's why also musically, I mean, maybe some of you are familiar with my productions. That's why I'm also so random, jumping from one style to another. I'm not so focused in one direction, because at that time when I was building my taste, I couldn't specify in one subgenre of a subgenre of a subgenre. And I think in long term that worked is a good favor to me, but also, yeah, was a different way of growing up musically. And I'm saying all that because that's also related to all the technical stuff. In Bulgaria till mid 2000s, the military service was mandatory. So after school, you had to go to the army, and there was also no civil service. That's it. And funny enough, in the army, I had my first ability to use a computer. And a very good friend of mine from that time, and we are still very close. We are sharing studio space right now. Sometimes we're traveling together. His name is Konstantin. He showed up in the military building when I was giving my duty with a plastic bag with a lot of floppy disks. And he said, look, there is this software. You have to type codes on hexadecimal system. I don't know what was that back then. It was just numbers and letters. And then you get sound. And I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. And you have these other floppy disks. There is a sequence of 5 floppy disks. If you manage to extract the information and unarchive it, maybe you have a sample of the aim and break, which for me, like, amazing. So that was the beginning for me. And I think it was the year 2000. I had my first computer at home. I had some sort of internet. It was a dial-up connection, and yeah, it was very difficult to get a hold of much information or you know, the latest software. It was quite difficult at that time. So I had to figure out on my own a lot of things. Also, I haven't got that many music friends. Just very few guys. They were in the same situation. We didn't know how to use our computers to make music. And basically, our studios were a desktop computer running Windows. My first computer actually was, yeah, with 16 megabytes of RAM after the upgrade, which is, you know, every telephone nowadays is much more powerful. So, well, basically, musically, my inspiration is the States, a bit of UK, a bit of Germany, particularly Berlin. But yeah, I love the American sound. And when I started to make music, I really wanted to make those shuffly, funky beats, which are not exactly in the grid. I love, and I still love DJ Sneak, but particularly that time, late 90s, I loved his music. So I was trying to make beats like him, which are not so tight. And with my software at that time, there was no, you can have only 16 notes, which are perfectly in the grid. There was no in the modern software or even in the ancient hardware. Normally you have that knob or function which is called shuffle or groove, which is moving around the notes and being not so static. I didn't know about that function. There was no such function in that software, so I had to come up with some sort of I realized if I speed up the tempo, I have more steps. So I came up with some sort of a mathematical solution, how much to speed up the tempo, so I have that swing that I'm looking for. And so on and so on. The first couple of years I was producing, I was using just this Windows computer. My only hardware was the mouse. I was pretty much producing on headphones, not very good ones. That's why I have tinnitus, ringing, now for over 10 years. It's there. And I'm explaining all that just to say that a musician supposed to be able to make music with a stone or a computer and a mouse, or yeah, if you have more, that's nice. But I meet a lot of new artists which are always saying, yeah, we will release some music, but now we don't have the budget. We have to buy this, this, and that, and we have to improve the sound. We don't have the right system. I think that's excuse, and not very good excuse. So from day one, because of the financial situation in my country and my personal financial situation, I was not able to have a lot of things, and I still wanted to make music. And on the later stage, I also wanted to perform, and my choice was either I wait and I never become an artist, or I handle the situation with whatever I have. Yeah, so with the production, I've always been very strongly computer-based, and I'm very lucky. 10 years fast forward, I started touring, and immediately I became very busy, and I was able to buy machines, and I like to play, I like to do things with my hands. So I also adopted the style of working with equipment. But always my way was working in a simple way, in a budget way, and that reflects to my productions, and that reflects big time to my live sets. So I'm gonna rely on you on something. I'm gonna talk very I'm not sure if I should get very technical about certain production techniques, but if you feel like you want to know about something specific, like how I design my kick drums, how I design my hi-hats, feel free to stop me and ask the specific question. I'm more than happy to share any information. I'm just afraid that all this is available on all the tutorials on the internet, so there's no secrets. Well, basically, I love distortion in any way, used in a moderate way. So basically, that's my secret: distortion on everything. So then we can. Yeah. So I guess I started to spend more time on in my studio. That was the year 2000 when I had my own computer. I was. I don't have a proper music education. I attended some piano lessons when I was a kid, but that was for 2 years, and it was not going well. And at some point, my teacher said, "Okay, you're a very nice person, but yeah, it's not working so well." I guess because I'm left-handed, and those of you who play instrument, especially a keyboard, know that the more difficult parts are for the right hand, because normally it's more developed. And the more simple the bass tones, you play one note, normally it's for the left hand. And I guess that's why for me it was so difficult to learn a traditional instrument. And I think that was the year 1991 when I was coming to a point I couldn't keep up with the lessons, and then I discovered techno. the piano couldn't do that kind of sound, so yeah, it was the point I stopped learning. And in the year 2000, when I was getting more serious into production, I felt, yeah, I actually would love to do more melodic stuff, and I didn't try to learn how to play. I had no money to buy a MIDI keyboard, and I thought, okay, at that time, I kind of discovered jazz, soul, and funk music. So what I was doing was I would sample a loop from, I don't know, Kool and the Gang, and I would try to replicate it. So I would take a combination of high pass and low pass filter, and I put it on the sampler, the software sampler, and I would try to isolate either the bass line or the mid range, something I want to mimic. And then, as I haven't got a keyboard, I was just programming. Well, my software haven't got a piano roll. It had the numbers. You had to type numbers for notes, and that's why basically I was learning how to make certain melodies. After a while, I saw some pattern. The melodies I liked were requiring the same codes, let's say, like that. Let's put it that way. So that was not a traditional way of learning how to play, but I get the result, which for me is more important. Like I get the result for me is more important than doing it in the right way. I was able to get melodies I'm satisfied with. I was able to get certain groove in the rhythm, but yet the next level was how to get the sound I like, because all my tracks at that time, they sounded very, now in more educated way we can say more clean. At that time I didn't know the difference between clean and dirty. The real production sounded dope to me, and my tracks didn't sound dope. So I was trying to figure out why the real records sounded good, and I definitely haven't got access to any real studio equipment, but I started to think, what is the signal path? Yeah, there is normally a mixing desk which colors the sound somehow. Often there is a tape recorder, and I'm very familiar with what the tape recorders do, because in Bulgaria the most popular medium for the time I was a teenager was the cassette. So I've spent a lot of time taping radio shows, taping stuff, and I was very familiar with what the tape does to the sound. So I was thinking, yeah, the tape does something to the sound, the mixing desk does something to the sound. Reading a little bit on the internet, I also realized that the old samplers also have certain artifacts. I learned that those artifacts are called digital aliasing. So I started to apply all this in my signal path in the computer, and I get very satisfying results. So again, I'm kind of finishing the whole topic right now about my production. Basically, I found everything I needed about the sound without the need to buy anything. And pretty much when I was quite satisfied with my music, that was the year 2000, when I was very lucky to have a successful record with a friend of mine. His name is Neville Watson. He's a very good DJ from London. We had a successful record on sub-label of Rush Hour. At that time I was trying to break through as a DJ internationally with the help of this record. It was not working so well because my eclectic taste, I couldn't stay in one in one rhythm, in one tempo for longer than 40 minutes. At that time, the sound was different. I mean, I guess now everything goes, but in 2008, the sound was more. Uh, People didn't like so much surprises. Uh, yeah, yeah, especially from newcomer. I mean, if you're known with being strange, that's okay. But I was just a newcomer trying to break through, and the promoters, they just make, let's say, deep house night, and they just want this warm-up DJ to play deep house. And that's it. I didn't stick to one territory. And my now very good friend, but back then just an agent, Kai Fischer from Hamburg, he said, okay, it's very difficult for me to sell you as a DJ. You, well, you don't play vinyl, it doesn't look good, and you have strange music taste, but you're very good generally. You have a good back catalog. Maybe you can think of performing live. And I didn't like the idea. I haven't got the equipment again. For me, that was also a very big struggle. How could I do it? But I had such a big drive. My choice was either I have a very unsatisfying and underpaid real job in my hometown, or I travel the world with my music. So I thought, wow, I have to make it work. So yeah, one of my first gigs, I basically borrowed a laptop from a friend. I played fully pre-recorded mix with my music, of course, and I was doing a little bit of reverb and delay on the master, which a lot of live acts do. No, that's the standard of a live act, I guess. And somehow people liked it. I don't know. I guess it was the right time, and with the variety of music I offered, maybe not everybody liked it, but when at that time when people saw a presentation of live music, everybody, I guess, was more forgiving. That was still kind of a new thing, and people were more curious and more forgiving. Yes. But again, I'm saying all that because I want to point that when I started touring, for me it was clear I'm not gonna be able to do it very professionally. I'm not gonna, at least in the beginning, I'm not gonna be able to do it perfectly. And also, I come from DJ background. I actually didn't want it to play live. I look at it like a door to the scene, but I never felt like a real musician. So the way I thought I have to have certain philosophy for the live act. I'm not able to buy a big amount of machines and try and then decide, okay, that's good, that's not good to use on stage. I should come up with a concept, and then somehow I have to make it on a budget, and also lightweight for traveling. I live in Sofia. I have a lot of flight connections. Often the time between the flights is 45 minutes. If I have a checked-in luggage, I hope that's not too boring for you to out of the what you expect, but for me this is actually much more important than explaining which plugin I'm using for the hi-hats. But I can tell that too later on. So before coming up with the idea how can I perform live, I thought I need an inspiration. So my inspiration is, I've never been into bands, I've never been into normal music, unfortunately. Most of my life I've been into dance music. So I thought, what's my inspiration? I said to myself, DJs are my inspiration. So I have to do my live act in a way that a DJ plays music. So I don't want to restrict my performance to set lists. I want to be able to change what I do in any moment. And what else I like to see? I love beatboxers, and I love those beatboxers who are, generating sound on the fly and capturing the sound, playing back the sound, and layering the sound. So I came up with that idea. It's nothing groundbreaking. People do it for many years, but I think what was my contribution to it is I was able to put together this idea of DJing, so not having a strict plan, and this idea of layering sounds that I took from the beatboxers. That was this idea 10 years ago, and I still follow the same philosophy and my setup that I'm gonna demonstrate later on. Half of it, I'm still using the same really cheap devices I bought 10 years ago to start. And I'm very happy that I decided to have a certain philosophy before building the system, instead of jumping around and having random shots and trying things, because I thought I would be very lost for a long time. So I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna play some music, I'm gonna show you a bit of how I play live. We're gonna talk also a little bit about how I design some sounds. Before I do that, do you have any specific questions? I would say more for production, because what I have in the back is my live set with the project I use normally on stage. So it's going to be a bit difficult for me to jump back and forth production and information for the live set. So does anyone have very particular questions about how I do certain sounds and how I process my stuff? I'm gonna ask again if you don't. Yeah. Okay.
I guess it's just a request. I'm looking forward to just seeing you play live and everything, and maybe Ooh, another microphone. Okay. Ooh. I don't know if you have it planned, but I was hoping you would have the microphone while you're doing your live set, and you can sort of think out loud to us, right? That's not the plan. So it's sort of like we're inside your brain when you're. Okay, that's what I said. Well, then thank you very much. Here. Next.
Test. Ah, now it's working.
Yeah, maybe another question quickly. Just in general, when you are producing music, are you more kind of a guy which is tweaking really element by element, or you prefer taking everything raw like it is in the recording, and then tweaking the master or something like that, or really tweaking element by element?
That's a very good question. I think it's going to be a long answer, because now you give me a good direction where to go. Again, coming back to my the lack of access to instruments in the beginning, I'm a dreamer. I was just visualizing. I was not able to, make music for a long time, but I wanted to. So I spent a lot of time, sometimes at night in bed, just imagining, I would, do this sound that way. And years later, when I had the equipment, I still kept that habit and that ability to imagine things. So big portion of my tracks happened in my head before I hit the studio. So many times when I go to the studio, I already know more or less what I'm gonna try. And of course, a lot of times that idea is not a great one. I'm tweaking. In the beginning was just virtual knobs, just using the mouse, playing around. So yes, sometimes I am surprised and I'm inspired by a random result. But in my music, a big portion of my work process was visualizing, just imagining, dreaming, imagining things, and trying to put it on how to say, on paper or on a record in a computer. And I failed many times, and I came up with something great afterwards. But still, that way of working stays till today. At some point, I was very influenced by playing live, and I guess people imagine. I guess some of you have seen my videos using gear, and on video everything looks very. It seems that I'm very spontaneous, and I guess many of you imagine I'm very quick in the studio. Actually, I'm very slow. So normally the process is. Well, my goal is to make music which is interesting and music which will stand the test of time, but also music for the people. I don't want to make music only for me and my 5 friends, at least at the moment. First of all, I'm a dancer. Before I became an artist, I was just a club, goer. And as much as I love really abstract and crazy stuff, I also love to dance. And yeah, my goal is to make music which is interesting and special, but also a bit of functional. And that's my drama. For me, it's very easy to make the typical Detroit, Chicago chords, and the typical bass lines, and the standard rhythms. That's what I do live. There's no surprise. I do very, very simple things live, and that's very quick. It's just a muscle memory. I repeat the same thing over and over again. But in the studio, sometimes I play something by hands, sometimes I program, but yeah, the process of finishing tracks is very slow. How can I say this? Often when I have a demo, a loop going on, and if it feels that it needs a bit of more a beautification and a little more effects and stuff, I would tend to delete it. So I try to jump on another idea which doesn't feel like I need to put just one more chords or one more shaker to make it nice. And that's basically my struggle. And directly to your question, I would say the drums are mostly programmed. I don't do the drums live. And I play more and more elements with the keyboard because I like more and more the human element. I think that's influenced by the live act. And most typically, yeah, the drum part is programmed, and then I'm recording sessions. Let's say I have a pattern, melodic pattern, normally a MIDI information coming out of the computer, or another like electrical information, CV gate, whatever kind of hardware or software I use. I have that melodic information which I send to normally a synthesizer, and I make sure I make session which is longer than 10 minutes. I imagine the composition. I try to make a session like how I imagine the track will happen. Let's say that live element is going to be the bass line, so I imagine in the timeline how this track will be developed. But of course, I'm human, I'm not that fast, so I make mistakes. So I just make sure that I have enough time, and when I start cutting out the wrong parts, I still have enough time for at least 8-minute composition. So I guess that's the answer of it.
I have a
yes,
question.
please.
How do you break down your tracks after you finish them producing to put on your live show?
Wow, that's a very good question. I'm gonna disappoint all of you. As I said in the beginning, I wanted to have a very DJ approach, DJ way of playing, and that software I used to use from the beginning till 3 years ago. The software is called Buzz, like B-U-Z-Z. So it's a modular environment, a bit like Reactor or Max. Not as complicated, but very similar style of being able to change the behavior of the existing objects and plugins, let's say. But the sequencing part is a tracker. You type those numbers and letters. The timeline goes from up to down, totally wrong. And this software was built by one person. It's a free software. So a lot of important functions were missing. So you're not able to export, you're not able to bounce the channels all together. if you want to have your stems, you had to record one by one every channel, which is a nightmare. And then when you do it, you would have a gap of silence in the beginning of the file, but every time you record, that gap would be different size. So even if you spend 10 hours, get your audio outside, of 2 hours, get your audio out of the software, then everything is not synced. So let's say then you put it in Ableton, and yeah, maybe the rhythms you can synchronize, but there are parts which are less like a slower attack, and you can't figure out the right position of the stems. And also this software is crashing and I'm losing projects all the time. So I had only one way to go. My way was, I'm gonna DJ with my pre-masters. There was no other way to do it. In the beginning, I thought with the time, I'm gonna adjust and I'm gonna have more stems or more MIDI. But at that time, I had no choice. And I had already gigs lined up. So I thought, if I had stems, what I would do, I would maybe stop the kick drum, stop the bass line, then play everything, like start, kick, bass, and maybe a melody. So I thought, okay, instead of having, all these channels and muting the channels and dealing with the levels, why not having one loop which have just hi-hats, one loop which have kick hi-hats, one loop that have kick bass line hi-hats, and they're staying in one channel. So the second MIDI controller I bought was this Novation Launchpad, this thing that looks like a chessmate board. So from the very, very beginning, the idea was, I'm not gonna have stems. I'm gonna take my pre-masters and I'm just gonna chop very short loops. But the result at the end is gonna be the same. I'm still gonna mute the parts, but not by having them on separate channels, just by launching different parts of the track. And also with in the beginning I started in a very restrictive way. I decided I'm gonna have only 1 bar loops, 2 bar loops, so this will force me to do stuff live on top, like play the keys, layer more drums, sometimes completely remove the pre-recorded element, make music completely live for a bit. And it was about, I think, 4 or 5 years ago when I reached a very good level of being improvising on stage, and I felt I don't have the need to have anything pre-recorded. But also at that time I realized that my impact at the crowd is not so strong. I mean, when I play at home, in my studio with my friends, everybody was like, wow, you're so amazing, you do all the beats on the fly, you do the bass lines, it's so great. But when I played especially bigger events, and the people just want to listen to my records. So I took a step back, and my system now is pretty much like that. I have those short loops from the pre-masters, but there are a couple of tracks, I assume my biggest ones. There are some portions of the track I play just very long, like 3-4 minutes. There are certain tracks I just don't want to change anything, and I'm still able to loop it simultaneously, layer more stuff. But basically the answer to your question is that's how I deal with the pre-recorded material.
Hi.
Hello.
When did you, because you told us about this machine learning, no, not machine learning, but with a machine, and I'm just interested, like, when did you learn about, or when did the software like take over or like was helping you to make your beats, like to make your music, and not when you were like in this position to think about this stuff, like after how many years? And yeah, I think that was the question.
Yes. Very quickly, because that software that I was using, the obscure one, well, the negative side was it was crashing, and it was having almost no ability to communicate with any hardware. But what was special about this software was, first of all, it's a modular system, and you were able to change the behavior of the machines by your taste. And something very specific about the sampler in that software is the way you write the beats is you don't use the mouse, you just type codes. And I know it sounds complicated. Unfortunately, it's just a PC software. It doesn't run on Mac. I cannot show you. But once you learn the codes, and there are only about 20 something commands, what you were able to do with that sampler is very quickly loop an area of the sample, very quickly offset the sample start, manipulate the sample in any way. Like you can very quickly define what happens with the sample when you loop it. Like, shall you pitch the loop up, with what tempo to pitch it up, or when you loop the sample after you play it, do you want to start moving the loop area, which is granular synthesis basically, or make the loop smaller or bigger, which is essentially granular synthesis. And nowadays, you know, people sell plugins, they say that's a granular synthesizer, but essentially to make granular synthesis you just need a sampler, and you just need to tweak the sample start position, the loop positions, the spacing of the loop. So the moment when this software started helping me is, I mean, compared to the regular platforms now for music making like Ableton, you can do the same thing. You in the sampler you have sample start, you have loop points, you have crossfade of the loop start and loop end. But in order to manipulate that, you have to take the mouse and carefully adjust that. And if you want this to be synchronized with the tempo, that's almost impossible actually with Ableton.
Okay.
I don't know about the other software,
Because
but in this one, yeah, sorry, in this
software,
software, everything was so much more mathematical. Instead of, it was not totally not visual, it was very mathematical. So everything was ratios,
okay.
and it was very easy to chop and go crazy, and everything was in sync. That was it.
So very manual, I would say. And because I was thinking about if you can write a program and make music with just this, because today you're using language to speak to the machine more than earlier and stuff.
Yes, it was a bit like that, because you could put different how to say obstacles on the path of the sound, and then if this happens, and then you could also apply certain random factors, which is also possible with popular platforms like Ableton, but for me it's a bit more difficult to reach to that point. In that old software, everything was somehow more simple, so you could put some sort of, how to say, obstacles, and if this happens, that happens, or that happens, that's some sort of logic. So for me, at a very early point, was easy to go more advanced, and particularly for making beats. And those so-called trackers, they are very popular amongst the breakcore, jungle communities because of this. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, well, it's pretty obvious that you are excited about the limitations of your setup.
Finally, yes.
And so I have a question about that. So first, how do you get influenced by this? But I have a following questions. Do you sometimes get intimidated by the opposite, like the when you're overwhelmed with machines? And you understand my question, right? Like, yeah.
Very good questions. So, well, as I said before, I was not into performing electronic music live For me, it's still difficult to figure out how to do it right. For me, dance music, even if we look back the history of dance music, like danceable R&B, which then became disco. I read a very interesting book by a guy called Mel Cheran, who created a record label called what was it? West End, yeah. And he was talking about the difficulty of putting the disco bands live because they're not able to have the same sound as the recording. And in the studios, even back then, they used a lot of tricks to make the sound dope, fatter. And basically, I was totally not excited to start playing live, but I did it originally with just the idea to travel the world, not in my favorite way, but still better than not traveling the world. But the person who convinced me I can do it in a way that I'm enjoying it was a guy from the UK. His artist name is Tim Exile. I don't know if anyone heard of him. I think I saw his demonstrations. That was 2005. He was building his system on a computer, so he was using the Native Instruments Reactor software. At that time, I think it was Reactor 5. So he had a pretty similar setup to me, just cheap digital controllers, a lot of them. And he was doing exactly what I'm doing now. Generating sound, looping sound, and layering sound. So I guess that was my biggest main inspiration, and still is till today. And I'm very happy to say I know Tim now. He's such a wonderful person. And you actually have to watch out. I'm not sure if I'm able to reveal, but he's working on a very interesting web platform, music related. So you have to watch for his future experiments. But yeah, that was my inspiration, and still I guess till today. And I've seen other really amazing live acts, and I really admire. Recently, I saw Magic Mountain High a couple of weeks ago. Juju Jordash and Movdi. Wow, that was very inspiring because they have no backtracks and they are just very good musicians, and they come with a bunch of hardware and they make it work somehow. But for what I do, for my type of music, I guess Team Exile was my thing. And yes, I'm struggling with the big choice I have. With having a computer, you have everything. And my way of handling this is, let's say every month I have a new feature in my live set. And if I don't use it for a month in a live situation, this have to go. This is it, plain and simple. Unfortunately, I get rid of a lot of really good ideas for different reasons. Sometimes it could be just difficulty to see certain controls in a dark environment. Sometimes just certain controllers wouldn't behave well, or they cannot fit my hand luggage. So they no, and I'm completely serious about it. Unfortunately, I lost and I had to let go a lot of really great ideas. But basically, that's my way of handling. If something is not, it doesn't feel intuitive on stage, because in the studio everything is intuitive. I have all the time in the world, you know. And today we have only 2 hours, so I have to be able to, you know, deliver right now. So that's my way of handling the.
Sorry, bitte, Verzeihung. Sorry, Tom. I'm a little bit involved in Paloma too. I was just hoping, I know it's really obvious, maybe you think, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And all the talk aside, I was really hoping you just turn on the instruments, and once we hear your instruments and the sound of what you're doing, all of this would really make a lot of sense and be a lot of fun.
Absolutely, yes.
So
Thank you.
if it's not disrupting anyone else's questions you want to talk, I mean, we can talk forever.
Absolutely,
But once we hear what you do, I think it's going to get really interesting.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Should
Thank
we
you
just
for
turn
that.
on the synthesizer?
Thank you for saving me from talking. Tests. The monitors. As I said, I'm not classically trained musician, and yeah, but at some point I decided. Actually, my father pushed me. He said, "Ah, you are playing live. You should have at least one traditional instrument on stage. You should play keys." But I don't know how to play keys, so. At first, so, you know, in Ableton you have that class of type of effects, which is you know, the MIDI effects, and some of them can restrict your mistakes. So you have, for example, that scale effect, and you can eliminate the wrong notes. So I started using it in the beginning, but then basically KiNK is all about wrong. KiNK is all about paradox, wrong notes, wrong rhythms. And so on. So I started using the scale effect, and it was just too boring. It was not me, and I had to remove it. But I still had to have certain helper. And I was you know, playing with the keys, trying things, and I realized. I quite like to play with the white keys, and there are only certain combination of white keys I don't like. So I don't like to use this one, but the rest. Of course, with the time I got more comfortable to jump around, you know. But in the beginning, I wasn't comfortable to try different scales, and still, as much as I started to use the black keys as well, I was able to do it only if only in one root key. It is what it is, and I realized I'm never going to be able to learn properly, or not very soon, especially with the amount of gigs I had in the last 10 years. So I decided to repitch my keyboard. So let's say I have these backing tracks, you know, my recordings that I'm DJing with, you know, during my live set. So let's play a backing track. In just a moment. Let's see something not too scary for a start. No, not yet, not yet. there must be a build-up of tension. Yeah. Shout out to my friend and inspiration, DJ Valentine from Sofia. Its track is called Valentine's Groove. So that loop, and let's say that track, I don't know what's the tonality, but I know that when I press this key, sorry, changing the tempo is also affecting the pitch. So I can play only if this is my root key, A, or whatever it is. It is what it is. So I listen to all the tracks, and all the tracks I have which fit that root key, I marked with the white color in Ableton. So I know that I don't have to change not the scale, the pitch of the keyboard. There is no scale, you know. If you want to go wrong, you can go wrong. Yes. But not all of my tracks are in the same root note. So I decided I have to make a system because I'm too lazy to make set lists before every show. So I have to have a system that I'm reacting in a moment. So I decided I'm going to restrict the type of root keys to 4. So I'm going to make 4 groups of libraries. So the first group is colored white, and it means I'm not repitching the keyboard. The second group is marked in yellow, and it means I have to repitch the keyboard 3 semitones. I don't know even in regular musician language what note is that, but when I see yellow marking in the computer, it means I have to pitch the keyboard with 3 semitones. I have a MIDI assignment on my controller here, so it's very fast to do. So you have this, and it just fits, so I don't have to think about it. I play the same very few chords I can play, but they fit to the new. And so on. And yeah, I'm just gonna start playing in the way I play regularly, and when I think there is something important to share with you guys, I'm gonna interrupt you again. And again, if there are any questions, feel free to ask. Talking about the DJing approach, I had to figure out how to have a. So I'm using the most possible system when I travel. I need to make sure I'm gonna be able to play. So I'm using a popular type of DJ mixer, and I had to figure out how to have still. So I'm using this drum machine by Roland TR8 as a sound card, because again I'm very restricted to what I can bring with me, and if I bring a sound card I should not bring a synthesizer, and that's my solution. And I had to figure out how to have different outputs for the different pre-recorded elements. So I decided I'm gonna use the return channels as some sort of sub-masters. And as I don't have stems, I have those pieces from my masters. I must be able to somehow still isolate the bass, because sometimes I'm not having a loop without the bass. So on each submaster I have a low pass and high pass filter, and it's very easy for me to just isolate certain frequency spectrum. So if I want to use this as a bass line, I use it as a bass line, and then I can play something on top. Or if I want to have just the chords and play the bass line, Yeah, this system is not ideal, unfortunately, because every time I want to play a new pre-recorded element, I have to go to the computer and I have to make sure the next source of audio is not coming out from the same channel. So that's a bit. If you come up with a solution, let me know. So yeah, let's say I'm using, let's say, this track just for something mid-rangey. I'm taking the chords. I need some sort of drum element, so I can just take it from another track. I don't have to play the track. I can just use the, use that spectrum, and so on. Either my choice is to make a collage of the pre-recorded elements, or I can use my plugins inside the computer or the instruments I have here. So yeah, the DR8 by Roland, for me this is really amazing performance instrument. And yeah, in the beginning I was like, yeah, it doesn't sound exactly like a 909 or 808. I was not perfectly happy with the sound, but then there were certain features which I cannot find in the old machines. First of all, starting with the fact that you have sliders and you can do a couple of things with one hand. My hands are busy most of the time. I'm mixing a cappella from vinyl while filtering something, and then with one hand I have to do a couple of things. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go on. Yeah, for example, the benefit of having this machine is they put this strange effect. It's called scatter, and I really didn't like it in the beginning. I didn't understand how come this would be useful for more trippy dance floor music, because it's some very hectic type of effect. But I found a setting where you can just loop and reverse the sound, and that could give me time to prepare a new element and progress with the set. So let's say I go like this. Gives me time to program another beat. And when the time is right, coming back to my disability to make traditional melodic stuff, because I don't know the theory and I'm not that good with the keys. What I found very interesting is when I put together a melodic element which with element which is not only out of tune but out of having an alternative tuning, something which is not tuned in the European standard scale. And unfortunately a lot of mass produced instruments are forced to play 12 semitones per octave, which is not what I'm looking for. And I'm always very happy when I can find an instrument which you can push out of the norm. And also the good thing with the plugins is they are flexible. Also, you can sometimes push the plugins to do things that are not normal. So we're gonna go with the hardware in a bit, but actually I'm gonna demonstrate what I'm talking about with a plugin. Yeah, it's a very boring type of subtractive synthesizer sound. So I'm just gonna make a very random loop. I'm not gonna use the keys because I would like to have intervals which are smaller than the distance between the black and the white key. So in that case, my solution is just apply velocity information to pitch. So I don't know what's gonna happen now. I'm gonna play a chord with the strings, but I bet that it's gonna sound nice, at least to me. Although this is completely out of tune. I have no idea that those are not normal notes. Sounds nice to me, I don't know. Let's add more out of tune things. So, yeah, thank you. Still nothing spectacular yet, but thank you very much. So, I'm very fascinated with putting together melodic elements which are not from the same world, and somehow they fit better. And yeah, that's a very big part of my music, and also a very big part of my life set, having alternative tonalities. And I'm still trying to find a pattern. I heard of different systems like Kalundi, for example, and so on. It's difficult for me to learn and remember a lot of how to say, technical information. So for me, it's just a bit easier to listen instead. So instead of following certain musical system, I would just twist the instrument technically, and I would just listen. So I would just use my ears. I guess that's my approach to finding my system of music. So I love displaced melodies, and I love displaced rhythms. And using a computer on stage, often it forces you to be very perfect. Of course, you can bypass the option to quantize your actions, but then you have to be very good. I still have to learn. So I found a middle ground. I decided to use a record player. So I'm able to layer elements which are almost there, but also adding a little human element. And also with my live set, at some point I realized I need to be able to translate what I'm doing to the crowd. And many times when I finished, and people come to me and they say that was a great DJ set, and it's a compliment. I appreciate it, but I couldn't explain then why I play the same sounds over and over again. So that's why for me it's very important to show that it's not a DJ set. That's why it's not changing so much over the years. And I started using certain devices which are responsible for certain sounds. So normally if I have a vocal in my live set, that's either my wife Rachel, who is in the back, or I use a turntable, which is also adding that not only the vocal element, but also it's adding that rhythmic instability. So maybe I mentioned before, I like some certain amount of controlled randomness, and I wanted to have that in my live set as well. Also sometimes in the studio in my productions. So also I wanted to have certain way of generating content, which is easy because, well, you saw my keyboard abilities. I can play, 3-4 chords. I can play a couple of bass lines, but after 1 hour they start to repeat. And I wanted to have another source of melody, which is a bit more unexpected. So I'm using this plugin. It's probably the most successful software emulation of the famous acid synthesizer TB303. So the plugin is called Audio Realism Bassline, and this plugin have this strange semi-random sequencer, which normally you use to sequence the acid melodies. But there is also a way to take the MIDI information out of the plugin, and you can control whatever you want. So again, I'm lazy to pre-program my acid patterns. I love acid house, so I have to have acid in my set. So I have this very cheap but amazingly amazing sounding analog emulation of 303. It's called MAM or MAM MB33. It's not very realistic, but it sounds very nice to my ears. So I take the MIDI from the plugin and I have certain control. I normally pre-listen on the random pattern that's playing. I pre-listen in my headphones, and let's say it doesn't fit the track that is playing right now. Let me play a track actually. Come on. Interesting. Okay, got it. Well, this kind of fits, but let's say it doesn't fit, so that also sounds nice. But again, talking about things that totally detuned and somehow they fit something very normal. But yes, let's say I don't like this, so I'm able to control the amount of long and short notes, which make that typical liquidy glide, let's say, legato, whatever you name it. And then I'm able also to control how many notes, how much variation in the note I want to have. A bit less. Less. 0. More. More. A lot. And also I'm able to control how many loud and quiet notes I can have in the melody. So 0, a bit more, a lot. I want to control how long my loop, my acid loop should be. So yeah, for me it's very interesting to have elements with different loop lengths. People call it polyrhythms, those who are more educated. Yeah, having a regular 4/4 loop against another loop length, it kind of makes my brain occupied, so I can have such a combination going for a very long time and I don't get bored, so I have time to dance or just look in the computer and come up with another idea. Please go. Yes, yes. Yes. Good question. Very good question. Very good question. So, as I mentioned before, I have a section in my live set where I have a lot of pre-recorded elements. I don't necessarily have to use them, but I have that save option. So again, that kind of deep house track I was playing in the beginning. Let me find it again. I often start my sets with it because it's very just nice and calm. Yeah. Yes, I'm gonna do that. That's very good. Very good question. Actually, I'm gonna start with a different sequence, I guess. Yeah, I'm very happy that now it's not a real club or festival performance, because now I have the time. You're not leaving yet. I'm very happy that you're still here, because there are moments where I have to. Often I don't have an idea where to go, and I'm on the computer, and but the crowd is waiting to be entertained, and the stress is triple times more. So now. Yeah, so let's say I wanna play this pre-recorded track, and so as I explained before, let's say that's the first loop, which have certain content, but it's not full on, so it's good way to introduce to the track. And also, there's a really good thing in Ableton when you're using the clips. For each clip, you can specify when the clip have to be launched, regardless of when you press the button. You can say after 1 bar or after half a bar. And I have 2 hands only. Sometimes I have to do sequence of actions, like put a reverb, add another effect, and then when the time comes to drop the next element, or let's say unmute the next channel, something like this, I have to do 3 actions, but I have 2 hands, so the ability to apply some logic in the clips and say I'm gonna press the button now, but this clip have to wait that much time, makes it possible for me to play live solo. I have only two hands, but I can do a couple of things like now. Simple but very, very efficient. So I had time to. I told the computer after 2 beats you have to jump to the next element, but I had time to also change some settings here. So I have this controller to launch the pre-recorded elements, and to navigate the clips. That's my CDJ's browser, if that makes any sense. Unfortunately, I don't see the track names, but I can see which loop is playing and more or less where I am. I have to look at the screen and also at the controller, but those pretty much correspond to each other. I'm jumping from one to another menu because I'm using the second page to activate certain synthesizer settings, but that page now is not important. Just what I'm gonna do now is change the scale of the keyboard, because I cannot play in that tonality. I have to repitch the keyboard, which I think was this. Let me listen. Yeah, I got the right key. I'm using this MIDI effect in Ableton. It's called pitch. Yes. So I don't think you can see the computer like that, but I have this channel, and the keyboard information is going through that channel, and all the plugins are taking MIDI from that channel. And on that channel I have 4 pitch MIDI effects, and on my controller I'm just bypassing them. So if I don't have, like, if everything is switched off, it means there is no change. The MIDI effect is not on. If I activate the first one by my strange scaling, it means -7 semitones, like really low. Then the next one is -2, the next one is +3, and then the next one is +5. So that's my 4 groups of tonalities. Yeah, of course, and I really have to do that because there is something very interesting in my live set. It's not very smart, but that's the way my brain works. That's the way I find it intuitive. My live set doesn't go from up to down. Basically, each channel is a track. So the architecture in the set is each is just a library, basically. So I have about 600 channels in my project. I mean, shall we count? I'm gonna create a new channel now, and we're gonna see. I'm also curious. Insert audio track. Wait a second. No, sorry, it's 366 channels. Yes, that's better. Yes, that's better. So I really have to customize the controllers, because the function of those controllers is, with these buttons you're supposed to launch scene. You're supposed to launch the whole raw. If that happens, I die. Yes. So I definitely have to. 1 second, I just want to answer the question. So let's say this controller I'm using to jump through the pre-recorded composition, but I still want to play live. I still want to layer more instruments. So I want to layer more piano. So this controller stays visually in the area where I have I have a lot of empty MIDI clips dedicated to synthesizers, drums as well. So, if I have one controller, I have to skip 366 channels till I get to the area where I'm actually recording the live part. And I tried, a couple of times, and it was just a disaster. I was so slow. Yeah, let's do it. Actually, let's try in the name of the experiment. Let's see for how long I need. I'm now I'm moving. Now I can record. So if I use one controller, it's gonna take me that long to jump through the pre-recorded element and then to be able to record more elements on top. So that's why, yeah, that was the answer. Okay. What was the next question? There was somebody else wanted to ask. Right.
I just want to know,
One second.
in terms of the mix, I can see on the first channel in the mixer basically is a combined output of everything besides the turntable.
You mean on this mixer?
Yeah, yeah. I just want to know where's the sum of the mix happening, because there's different elements that you're adding from the 303, the drum machine and everything. So the mix is in the box on the different channels. I mean, in the laptop.
So channel 1 normally is so as the drum machine is the sound card, everything from the computer goes through the drum machine. Yeah. And the balance between the computer and the drum machine happens here. Okay. And that goes to channel 1. Channel 2, I normally have this acid synth. So every now and then, every couple of months, so this system is the same with the Novation controllers, is the same for 10 years. But every month or two, I try to bring another little box. So at the moment, this is the KiNK modular, micro modular. So now this is on the 4th channel. And the 3rd channel is the turntable. So in terms of sonics, yeah, maybe this is not the perfect summing box. And I don't have, I don't bring any compressor, any processor to beef up the sound after, because the pre-recorded elements I have are already too distorted and too lo-fi. And I kind of like the combination of very processed sound layered with very clean, very transparent sound with a lot of transients, which normally comes from the drum machine. It's too clean, but the combination of dirt and clean is that's a good result for me. So yes, a lot of people ask me why you don't have a compressor at the end. I tried, but the result would be less dynamics, less punch. So this is it. This is the system. And you were asking me what about the yes.
Yeah, just about this Novation controller, because that is kind of the brain of the mix, I guess.
Yes, it's actually more important. As I said, I have 3. I realized that I need, for the DJ part, let's say, I need 3 decks. And actually the same when I'm DJing, not so often nowadays, but I realize I need 3 decks, but not more. If I have more, I'm getting more, basically, confused. So here I have the faders for the 3 decks. And then on that side, those are my levels for the other instruments. What I'm using in my live set instrument-wise is always the most obvious type of sounds and the ones that I'm mostly used to, because in a very loud sound system with reflections in the room, if I do something very delicate, I'm not able to recognize. Also, especially when I use some sort of subtractive synthesizer, I can hear only difference either if the cutoff is on minimum or maximum. And when I'm going somewhere through the values in the middle, I cannot really hear in the whole craziness of sound. So that's why for my live set, I choose the most obvious instruments, which I've been listening to so many years, and more or less I can hear what's happening. So let's say the first plug-in instrument I have is the Rhodes piano. I love Rhodes piano. Second instrument is that really famous house piano by KiNK, you know, the M1 synthesizer. It's very, very. Yeah, it sounds even nicer low. It's very cheesy, but I'm confident to use it because I know if you wake me up in the middle of the night, I can immediately recognize the sound and it's right for me. Then there is this, the third channel is some sort of FM. I'm using operator in Ableton. I use it in a very simple way. It's just I'm using 2 operators, and I like to play a lot with velocity. So I make sure if I'm using synthesizers, the velocity is always doing something, either changing the pitch or changing the frequency modulation or filter, whatever you prefer. So let's say Rhodes piano, regular M1, boring house piano. FM synth, boring mini Moog. Sorry, that's strings. I love strings. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, the boring mini Moog, which you can also do it not so boring with some crazy mappings I have here, like the velocity to pitch I was already demonstrating. Yes, very good question. So basically, those are my levels. So these 3 are the levels of my 3 virtual decks, and those are my levels of the rest of the virtual synthesizers. And then, so for me, it's very important to my memory is not amazing. So for me, it's very important to have everything laid down in a very intuitive way. So I don't have to think of what was this for. So let's say this is the Rhodes piano, the volume, and then there is something on top of it, so it must be related to the Rhodes piano. So in that case, that's a ring modulator. And then the next channel is a piano. The knob on top is doing something with the piano. I don't even have to remember. I just know that this is related to this, and so on with the next couple of instruments. Yeah, over here on top, that's the control for the mini Moog, and these controls are shared with some other more freaky instruments. But that's, yeah, you guys can choose how you want to map your machines. But my advice would be, make it in a way that you don't have to remember. Yeah, just make it in a very intuitive way. Are you using macros? I do. I try to remember for what. Actually, I'm using a lot of macros in my productions, because I'm able to limit the value of modulation, and sometimes also I would like to modulate, a couple of times with a couple of things with one movement. I love to change the resonance of a filter opposite to the cutoff sometimes, and that I guess in my studio that's what I use a lot, mapping a cutoff and resonance to the same controller, but in the opposite way. But in the live set, I don't remember for sure. There was a time I was using this controller. It have a gyroscope inside. So yeah, well, I had to figure out how to make the people also listen to music they don't want to listen. I don't play the sound of now, and I want to play what I want to play, and I had to figure out how to do it. And I'm rather shy person in my personal life, and I used to be shy on stage, and I had to figure out how to perform without feeling embarrassed, how to attract attention and still play. So with this gyroscope, I thought, I can, move around with my hand, but I'm not just like faking it or something. I'm actually doing something that people can see and hear. So I had this thing attached to the pitch of the acid synthesizer normally. So, but I wanted to have the pitch also on a knob. So that was I was doing some trick with the macro. I don't even remember what was it, but that helped me to have two controllers assigned to one function. I don't even remember. That was quite interesting. I have to find out how I did it. Yeah, that's about macros. I guess you want to see the gyroscope now, yeah? Yeah, I'm gonna show you. Yeah, now it goes to a drums. But I have to record the drums first. So. Intuitive layout and coordination, super important. As I said before, I like those uneven loops, and very often when you have this, you lose idea of when is your first time, when the loop starts. And I'm very happy now I have this drum machine. It doesn't have to be Roland. You can have any kind of product by any kind of brand, but this drum machine shows me when the loop starts, because now if I don't look at it, I'm totally lost. I don't know when is the first time. But when I record in Ableton, the way I set it up, the record launch is set to wait for 1 bar, and I need to know when that 1 bar is when is the beginning of that 1 bar. So I'm looking at this sequence, and I know now again. So now I can navigate in my system. Yeah, so that's the gyroscope. So thank you. yeah, it's some people don't like it. Some people are too serious when they go in the club, and I'm too serious when I'm in the studio. I can spend 2 weeks fine tuning the hi hat. That's why my ears are ringing. Actually, that was 2009. I spent hours recording hi hats through cassette and listening to that on headphones, and really loud, and I get tinnitus. Yes.
Um, how do you work around the tinnitus? Because I got mine after I started producing, and now things sound a lot brighter than they used to.
Well, I guess the brain adjusts somehow. What the doctor explained to me is that basically I'm not able to hear certain frequencies, and the brain is trying to hear those frequencies, but the brain is not able to get them anymore. The nerves who are translating those frequencies are dead. So the brain starts to imagine those unexisting frequencies. That's the tinnitus. That's what I was told. But the brain is something amazing. The brain is finding a ways around. Like if you have a clock in the room, like an analog, physical clock,
I do.
and after months and years, you stop hearing that clock. I guess many of you experienced that in your life, right? Having a sound which repeats forever and ever. At some point, your brain just ignores it. So I guess that's well, how I deal with it. I got the problem exactly when I started, the same year when I started touring, and I got the problem. I stopped playing for a couple of months. I was very depressed. Stopped producing for a while, and unfortunately, the tinnitus didn't go away. It stayed. And I still had the desire to make music. I still wanted to play, so I just came back to it. And yeah, with the time, I stopped hearing it. Now, if I go to very quiet, actually, my tinnitus got worse with the years. That's 10 years already. Every weekend, I'm exposed on a very loud sound. I try to play with protection. Sometimes it works, but often it doesn't. So unfortunately, it got a bit worse. I have a little bit of hearing loss. Well, the doctor said for my age, that's fine. But basically, the way I dealt with it is just to ignore it. And now I don't hear it anymore. If I focus on it, if I go to, I don't know, in a very quiet room, like a bathroom, and then I really focus on it, maybe I can hear it. Or sometimes in a very quiet hotel room, but generally it doesn't bother me anymore. I'm aware it's there. I have a damage, but I still love music, and I just ignore it, and it's not there anymore.
Right. Well, it kind of turned into hearing, like if I'm producing, then I'll hear sounds outside and it'll sound like a sample to me. So I think it actually helped with the way that my brain translated it. But I just have one last question. How do you know when one of your tracks is done?
I finish tracks only because I have deadlines. Otherwise, never. Like the first track, the first music I finished was a friend of mine was working in a student radio station in Bulgaria, and I was already making loops and sort of recording live with the mouse, taping, recording on tape. So I was doing some sort of music, and my friend said, "Hey, do you want to go? Do you want to come to my radio show? You're already producing for a while. I would like you to show your music to the people." And he said, "Yeah, next Friday, you're coming to my radio show." So that's how I finished my first tracks. And so on. Now with record labels, I was lucky that I have people who want to publish my music. So yeah, basically I have deadlines, and it's good to force yourself to find a way to force yourself and restrict yourself into timing. That's my way. Otherwise, I would never finish track.
I have another question again. Of course, I was on Saturday in Griesmühle.
Right.
It was
Right.
really awesome. You did
Thank you.
awesome job.
Thank you.
So I was just a bit curious about your Cyrillic project, especially how you handle the tier 8, because that's the main instrument actually, because you are only looping on the turntable. You are not using full tracks. We heard it clearly. And I was impressed how far, because I have a tier 8 also, but I want this project to happen actually.
Well, for those who don't know, I also do this other project called Cyrillic, like the alphabet we use in Bulgaria. And a couple of years ago, I had this idea of playing a live set with standard DJ equipment, because the particularly the Pioneer DJ mixer and the CDJs to me are like an instrument. As much as people criticize the sound of the mixer and so on, I'm very happy with the way I can create sound with that mixer, and not particularly this model, but the newer ones. And I love the CDJs, and I treat them like an instrument. So I had this idea. I didn't really thought of bringing it to reality, but I was at a dinner with some people I don't know. I was explaining how I'm gonna record very basic sounds. I'm gonna play them from a USB stick, but no drums, just synthesized sounds from the CDJs. And I'm gonna make the drums with, well, back then I imagined the real 909. But then I had a booking request, and I had to, from two very big festivals, which was shock for me. People trust me too much. And I couldn't say no, and it was also exciting to take the challenge. So yeah, the bet was done, and I explained the concept, and then I had to do it. So how I did it, just practicing, just a lot of practicing. I was restricted to this drum machine and 3 decks with very basic recordings inside. So to be honest, I'm still struggling, and you've been there, and you have to tell me. My fear is that exactly as you said, the sounds are very recognizable, and also when I do this combination of the basic sounds from the record players and this drum machine, there is no any processing which glues up the sound together. I tried bringing compressors, but also in a situation out of the studio, I couldn't get the sound right. So sometimes I'm thinking I should just DJ as Cyrillic, because the Cyrillic concept is amazing, but it doesn't sound as I want. So what's your recommendation? Shall I continue, or shall I switch to DJ set?
Honestly, it was fucking insane. So,
okay.
so I would keep it up.
Thank you. Oh, that's thank you very much.
Yeah. So
There is one.
I would also have a question. May I?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I have a question for you, man. So yeah, I feel like we live in a world of perfection, right? Where we judge DJs or performers on how they execute their transitions. Oh, look, these tracks blend very well together. There are the same room note. The root note is on the same scale.
Yes, yes.
And then comes you, right? So you come and you don't give a fuck. You say you're off tone. You say you're off grid. And I think that's actually why we like you. You know, you stand out. And
thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to jump back on what you said at
Yes.
the beginning of the talk. You said that you sometimes make mistakes.
All the
you know.
times, yes.
Yeah, all times. I mean, I've heard you or seen you a couple times, a fair number of times. I was never able to say, oh yeah, look, here he played wrong notes, or he's been off grid. I don't know if we realize when you make mistakes. So what do you consider a mistake? Maybe you could just
yes,
make a mistake on purpose.
I just did it. Like now, when I was trying to demonstrate different functions, and it took me too long to.
Yeah, but then the beat is going, so it's like. Yeah,
Yes, but that's a mistake because I'm already losing the energy.
Okay.
Most of the times, that's the mistake. It's not the wrong note. It's losing the momentum.
Yeah.
So this is it.
So then during the week you would work on your ability to work faster and between the things, but
Less and less, to be honest, because I think with my library system and the way I set up everything, I think I reached the top of what's possible for me to do physically in terms of being fast, and I'm not satisfied. So I think the next level would be just to figure out a better way of organization of the files. For example, this weekend I was thinking, how can I become faster? And a friend of mine from the Netherlands, his artist name is George Satori. He's making totally different type of music, more of a ethno-oriented house music, very different. But he gave me this tip. He's using the buttons on the computer keyboard to jump through the screen. So I thought, wow, I can actually try to do it, because like browsing like that, it takes so long to jump from one. That's 300 something channels. It takes so long to go, and every time I want to play a new track or pre-recorded element, I have to find it. It could be on the other end of the screen, and I have to come, and I have to make sure it's not coming out from the wrong channel before I play it. So that takes so long. That's my mistake. But I practice so much, and physically I cannot overcome it. And my friend Georgia said, yeah, why you don't use the keyboard and jump through? Why don't you use the keyboard and jump through different areas on the screen? So when I press 1, that goes to the first group of tracks, which are in white, and it means I'm not transposing my keyboard. 2 is like the second scale, and so on and so on. So that now my focus now is not that much of a practicing, because I think I reached the physical limit, and now I have to figure out a better way how to organize my set. And if you have an idea, let me know. Any of you. Yeah, there is another question over there.
Hey.
Hello.
So I have a couple of tips and a couple of questions.
Very good, thank you.
The tips are, you asked for gluing, and I know you don't like the new version of the TR8, but you have the...
Yeah.
But
some things I don't like about it.
Yeah, but you know, having the control knob per channel, you could assign different things, and that helps glue like the sound print of the thing. The other tip is, like, there's a guy who was here for CTM Festival this year.
I'm gonna give new TR8 a second chance. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. I know about the function. It's good that you pointed out as well. Thank you.
You could come tonight in my house and try it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The other tip is there's a guy here for CTM Festival who specializes in microtonalities and wrote a book on it, and has these Max for live devices that he wrote, and he's just a really interesting guy, and I can share the link later. Like,
that would be amazing to know
he
more.
also looks at the political side of it, because like if you tuno instruments that are made for different scales to a chromatic scale, then you have this political issue of like you're changing, you know, the music.
Yes.
So yeah, so share that. But the questions are both for the KiNK project, and the first one is, you know, if you're programming, let's say you take out the drum machine and you just have the loops going, even if there's like a bassy loop, and you're programming a new beat basically live, and the audience is like waiting for a beat to come on, and you know, if you're doing like a house beat or a techno beat or something more recognizable, it's easy to just punch it in and you know what's gonna come out. But if you want to do like a more weird, like broken beat or something that's just like more, you know, weird, then you have so much less room for error, you know, because it may just come out, you know, you put it on and you don't pre-cue things. So how do you deal with like improvising a beat that's not your standard, something expecting when the audience is waiting?
Well, more in the musician's way of doing things. Well, the drummer is not having a cue, like a pre-listen. So the drummer is just playing the drums. And that's what I do too. But luckily, I'm able also to record when I play. So I'm like a drummer. I'm gonna demonstrate now. I think everybody's gonna have fun if I play a little bit. Actually, I also have the Kyrillic loops, so I can really not play them from the decks, but I can play them from the laptop, and I can demonstrate. But yeah, doing it just like a musician would do, just play. But then I'm able to record and loop in the real time. However, that's a very big restriction with this drum machine. I just have one type of sounds, and for me, it's difficult to go in a less familiar way. And I'm still looking for a solution. The TR-8S is perfect, but there are 2 or 3 very important features that missing. I play a lot with the reverb, and the new version doesn't have much control over the reverb. And also, the attenuator is put on the send, and I need to be on the return, because when I cut out the reverb, I want the sound to stop.
I see.
That's very important thing for me, which is not there. And a couple of other little things, but I know eventually I'm gonna move on TR-8S. I'm just not ready. I need to find another strong trick that can replace the reverb.
I see. And the other question is, when you're doing the loops in Kyrillic again, and I think I read somewhere or heard somewhere that you don't organize them terribly much, that it's kind of like whatever comes on. And so the question is, let's say you're playing some loop already on 1 or 2 CDJs, and then you pick another one, but it doesn't really work, or whatever. Do you go, like, to what degree do you actually prepare those loops with like the BPM or the key or the whatever, versus just like, oh, I'm gonna throw something on? And
yeah, well, most of them are pretty much atonal, so there is a lot of tension in the music, and I mean they are all off key again, so they fit. And I think at the moment my library is with about over 100 loops, and they are named very randomly, so I don't know the names, I don't recognize most of the loops. Of course, in the plane on the way to the gig, I try to pre-listen. I'm using Rekordbox, so I make some nice fits between the loops, but on stage I rarely use the combinations which I pre-arrange in the Rekordbox. So it's very random. I don't know the order, I don't know the names of the loops. Those are not tracks. Each loop is, the recording is long. Each loop I record about 10 minutes, each session, because I have some variation with filter, let's say, or effects, but normally the melody is half a bar or
so
1/3 of a bar, so it's everything is very short.
what about tempo for Kyrillic? Like, do you stick to
Well,
the same tempo? Or
yeah, well, I'm afraid to use sync. Still, it's working, but especially with those loops, there are not so many rhythmical elements inside, so I'm still afraid to use sync. But at the same time, to make one track, you have to have at least 2 loops and to have the drum machine going on. There are no any drums from the CDJs. So I decided I'm going to do all the loops the same tempo. So I still have to mix, I still have to adjust the phase of the loops. But because the tempo is the same, it's quite easy to beat match with the drum machine. So when I started, that was a couple of years ago, house and techno was slower. So all the loops are made 125 BPM. But now I play it, I just change the tempo on the record players. So it just depends. Whoever is playing before me, I'm just changing the tempo. But I still cut the loops on 125 because the library is big. I'm too lazy to change the original BPM. But the original BPM doesn't matter. You have pitch control, so this is it.
cool.
Now I play mostly 133, 135 BPM, somewhere there. Yeah, with the for the Kyrillic set, not for KiNK. KiNK is a bit slower.
Let's hear it.
Well, now general rule is 127 BPM, but I played a lot of gigs lately where there was much higher energy, and I tend to play. I'm really adjusting it. I don't have a solid tempo, but now this project I see I've saved it on 129. Still nothing extreme, but a bit more energetic. And that's what's very interesting with my tracks, is that Normally they sound nice faster. They don't sound so good when I make them slower than the original tempo. So for me, it's okay that I can speed up a little bit. But Kyrillic, so the whole idea is not only playing elements from the CDJs, but using the CDJs in a very creative way. And as I mentioned, polyrhythms many times tonight. Unfortunately, we don't have CDJs here, but I didn't request it. But a really interesting trick I can recommend to the adventurous DJs here is, well, with the CDJs now you can already have uneven loops like 3, 9, and 12. But for me, that's not crazy enough. So I would scan my loops with Recordbox, and I would have quantization enabled, and I would count to 7 or to 11, like really strange timing, and then I would loop, and then I would shorten the loop, and then it gives you really strange, still in sync, but really strange a measure, which is not at the moment. You cannot do it automatically with the buttons in the CDJs. So for Kyrillic, that's what I do basically. I have those audio material, and then I create those strange loops, always very spontaneous, because I'm just not even counting. Just I put the start looping point, and then I'm waiting, and okay, now. And then I shorten the loop, and I'm surprised by the loop length. And I do the same with the second CDJ and the third CDJ. And all the loops, they start to dance in a strange way against each other. So that's also something interesting, I think.
Also, quick question. So in your studio, of course, you are starting to get some modular stuff. How do you get around with modular? Because everybody's crazy about it at the moment. We all get crazy with it. But how do you use it really to produce a lot of things, or just some elements coming from the modular?
Well, I was about to say I don't use it, but actually the whole Kyrillic concept is based on the modular. I decided I need to have a identity in the sound, and with a computer there is no identity. You have everything. You can make classical music, you can make everything. And especially in the beginning, my modular system was very small. And I decided, okay, all the content for the Kyrillic project will be only produced with the modular. I have a love-hate relationship with the modular. It just takes me so long to come up with a good sound or a different sound, because mostly you have this clocked arpeggio, it's the same. And what I like about the hardware modular systems is that you always get the result. Even if you patch it in the wrong way, there is some noise, there is something. And with the software, I'm using Native Instruments blocks. I'm using different modular systems in the software, and very often I'm completely lost. I don't get any sound of it. And with the hardware, you always get a sound. It's not maybe the sound you want, but you have a sound. And that's what I love about the hardware.
Do you approach on modular more like Western style or Eastern style? Like
definitely Western style. That's the reason. Shall I explain, or you guys are familiar?
Additive synthesis.
Not that in terms of additive, but more in terms of looped envelopes and finding different purpose of the modules. Because if we talk about Surge and Buchla, a lot of the modules were not named. You can have this module as a filter, but you can have it as a oscillator if you drive the resonance. Or actually, Buchla, they didn't really had resonant filters, but anyway. More unorthodox approach to the modular. Otherwise, I can just have a regular keyboard synthesizer. So yeah, definitely West Coast. Yes. Yeah, you can still go. Just
No, go for it. I will ask my question
trying
after.
something. No. You can go now. I was just wanted to prepare
Okay.
for something afterwards. Yeah, please go.
So it was about the fact that you said that you don't use a compressor when playing live, and I was wondering then, as a live act, you play between two DJ sets. How do you compete in terms of loudness with mastered tracks without using a compressor?
Yeah, I lose the war very often. I lose the war very often. Um, well, I just make sure that I'm touching the red little bit. I at the moment I'm using a Pioneer DJ 900 Nexus 2, which I have at home, and I push it like everything I pushed on the maximum. And I wanted to see what's the result. So I guess there is some sort of limiter inside. So when I pushed everything on the maximum, it sounded a little bit like the popular Waves L limiter plugins, which is maybe not perfect for the studio production, but actually in a club festival it sounds quite nice. So I'm not saying you have to push everything in the red, but yeah, my way is licking the red little bit on each separate channel, touching the red little bit on the master, and yeah, that's it. Definitely making sure that it doesn't stay in the red all the time. There is certain dynamics, but yeah, you have to experiment. I don't know what is your console that you use for live, but I just tried, and the older Pioneer mixers didn't sound so nice when you overdrive them, but the new one, it have that limiter effect, which is maybe not so good for DJs, I don't know, but for me, what I do is perfect because it's gluing the mix a little bit. And yeah, that's my way, but it's not perfect. So I'm also not happy with that solution. It's just, for now, that's what I do.
I've been actually asking a lot of live acts what they do, and a lot of the people who do not use end-of-line compressors said that they involve the front of house engineer and asked to crank the volume a couple dBs. Maybe you could do that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
I have another question. What is on your tech rider? I see that all of your gear is on some kind of foamy thing. Is that on your tech rider or?
No, this is just the way the boot looks.
Okay.
What is it? Basically, I request for the Pioneer mixer and for one turntable. The rest I bring with me. And to be honest, I find a lot of difficulties with this system. Setting up is more delicate than setting up turntables. So if there is a big vibration in the booth, the music will stop. If there is not enough space, if the cables are too close to each other, the music will stop also. And I still haven't found a great way. We are very particular with the agency I work with. We ask the not the promoters but the people responsible for the sound in the club. We ask them to sign. I did this state-of-art tech rider with the dimensions and the graphic of the instruments, and then also actual picture, and everything is described very carefully. And we ask the production guys to sign this paper, and very often, even I think a couple of weeks ago, there was zero space, and I was asked, can I put my stuff together? And it was a festival. Can I put my stuff together after the DJ before me? And that means 40 minutes silence. So yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to do it in the best way, but I'm not giving up.
And I just have one last question.
Of course.
So you play a lot of festivals, which means that you probably don't get to sound
No
check
sound
very
checks,
often.
no.
How do you go around that? What's your like?
I got used to it. So my biggest fear is now the space and the vibrations. And even when I do sound checks, well, I play with this system now for a long time, and it doesn't sound great in any acoustic environment, but I tend to adjust less and less because more or less I know, especially at the sound checks, if if there is no radical major problem, I tend not to adjust anything with the sound. My sound checks are more to win my space. And yeah, for me, it became pretty fine not to do sound check at festival. I just have to have 30 minutes to set up. I have to have my space, and yeah, no big monitor speakers on the table because then it's the end.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Kyrillic time, right? Yeah, so basically that's how I start. I have nothing programmed in the drum machine. Normally it's very challenging taking over another DJ because to start with the first track, I have to play the drum machine and one of the CDJs together. It's very difficult to deal with both mixing in after the other person. Yeah, so normally I start with nothing in the drums. That was interesting. This happens quite often in my live sets. I mean, after I guess after 1 hour, I start to feel more comfortable with everything, with the crowd and what I'm doing, and I start to feel too comfortable, and then I open the wrong channel, and there is this sound like just now. What happened? Right. Yeah, so that's also a very usual way how I start the KiNK set. I have nothing, and I just start to layer sounds. I love to lower the expectations. Yeah. Play with less bass because the speakers I think they cannot handle. So I would love right now to listen to a bit louder. So I guess I'm gonna play with less bass, get a bit more sound pressure. was just told that I'm redlining the stream, so I have to go a bit more quiet. The good thing playing with very restricted system is there is not so much to do, especially for the Kyrillic set. There is not so many parameters. So the only thing that left to play is levels, basically. I love to play with silence. It's very hypnotic. It's very hypnotic type of music, and I guess when I do that format, yeah, I just got carried on, and I don't have a plan. And the moment when I start feel bored, then I realize, okay, maybe it's boring for the crowd, and it's time to change. But the change is much more spontaneous and intuitive, because as much as I'm restricted to one type of drums, but then all of the sounds are on the tips of my fingers. So I'm building some sort of tension, and then, yeah, let's wait a bit, let's wait, let's see. you guys for how long you can stand it, and then now we can change. Like I can do it so fast. That's quite fascinating to be able to play with the nerve of yourself and the audience as well. So yeah, KiNK is cool, but now I guess we're talking about KiNK and oh, come on, wrong sound. Yeah. So right now, in this moment, in the next couple of months, and in the following year, I guess, I want to focus more on the paradox, atonality, arrhythmia. I don't know if that's correct to say in English. I don't know. So I'm looking for certain tools which can help me to achieve that. So yeah, just play around with that. I was just told that it's time for last questions. I mean, I just started getting comfortable with my machines and actually trying to bring something new, but we have only that much for this time. We still have a bit of time, but yeah, it's time, unfortunately, to. It's up to you. I'm totally open to go for as long as possible. Right. 15, 20 minutes. So you guys, do you have anything else particular that you want to know? Oh yes, good.
Test. Yeah. All right. I was curious the whole time why you have two of these launch pads. So I guess you were using them for the last 10 years. But what about the push 2 or the push from Ableton? What stops you from using it? Because you said in the beginning that you use the return channels to subgroups, so to
Yes.
the pre-mixing, and you have plenty of buttons there. You have a nice screen. you can easily select them, and maybe you could also implement like an iPad or so to use all these touch gestures to scroll to your 360
Yeah.
channels.
Push, I really have to try it out. Yeah, the reason is yeah, just the hectic lifestyle, and yeah, unfortunately, I'm not so open for change. I'm trying to fight that, but in a way, I'm very comfortable with my system, and I will try push. I will try it. That's for sure. But anything with touch surface like iPad or smartphone, it doesn't work for me because I'm the sweatiest guy in the industry, and my hands are wet all the time. Even now, when I have to go to the laptop, use the trackpad, I cannot make contact, and that's a very big problem for me. I would love to use iPad. I bought what was it? Touch OSC, and I built some nice controllers for the synths. I was hoping that I can use it, but I cannot make contact. Halfway my set, my fingers are already wet, and it's quite difficult.
And then I was thinking about if the guys who do the same as you do, like Boston 186, New York,
Yeah,
or Agents
the
of
friends,
Time,
yes.
do you communicate with them and do you
Yes.
exchange with them and they give you nice tips, or is it like, no, I don't want to tell you how we do
No,
this?
it's super. Actually, we communicate a lot, especially with the New York guys. Mostly Dennis, one of the guys, and he was, I have to say, very helpful. And he's very educated. Uh, I think his day job was also he also had for a long. I'm not sure if he's working also now a regular job or just touring, but he's very educated technically. So I had a certain problem with the drum machine. Very often my controllers lose contact with the computer, and then what happens is the TR8 stops, or any other outboard sequencer. And Dennis figured out how can I give a start command. Ableton normally doesn't do that. I don't know, there was certain difficulty with automatically restarting the sequencer, and I don't even remember. We used a certain MIDI tool outside of Ableton to translate MIDI note to start message. I don't even remember how was it, but he helped me out. Unfortunately, it didn't work because there was a certain latency. So when this problem occurs, I was able to automatically restart the drum machine, but with certain latency, which wouldn't align with the track. But yeah, with all the guys, we communicate, and we are trying to be as helpful as possible because it's difficult enough anyway.
I'm curious a little bit about the effects. Like I saw you use reverb in the drum machine, and you have effects also probably from Ableton.
Yes.
What else more do you work as effects auxiliaries channels?
Very simple. I have one delay and one reverb in my project, and that's it. Because again, in the madness of performing live, and often it's dark, and you have people who are drunk or high and walking around dancing, and it's very difficult for me to focus and also to hear. Sometimes also I try to perform with hearing protection, and if I have a more delicate effect, I cannot really hear what's going on. So and also I need to preserve my processing power in the computer, so I'm actually quite happy to use the most basic effect. So it's just let me have a look. I don't know what I'm using. I don't remember. Yeah. So in Ableton,
You have like a very long reverb.
I'm using the filter. I'm using the filter delay, but I created a feedback loop, so I can drive it to self oscillation. I think the stock effects in Ableton, I don't think they can. The delays, they cannot self oscillate. So I guess most of you know that you you can feed back the return channel to itself, and you can drive the delays to do stuff they're not supposed to do. And also something really cool, I'm not using it live because again I'm afraid to go too extreme, but in my studio I put some unusual effect in the delay chain, like pitch shifter or a ring modulator, and each repeat is shifted, and it's quite unique effect. So if you guys haven't tried that out, bear in mind in the return channel you're able to feed the channel to itself, and then if you like, for example, dub style delays, you can build your own dub style delay by putting distortion, compressor, bandpass filter in the loop, and you have very big control over what that delay is doing. So, but in my live set, it's just this filter delay which is doing almost nothing, but it's just feeded back to itself, so it can self-oscillate. And the reverb is also, there's just a Ableton reverb, it's also feeded to the delay. So sorry for the mess, but it's interesting to show. So that's just the reverb, but it goes back to the delay, which is also feeding back to itself. It's quite beautiful. I'm sorry? Let's have a look. I don't remember. Let's have a look. Let me see. I'm controlling the volume because I'm not using feedback. I'm not using the feedback control of the effect itself. As much louder I put the sound, as it's feeding back to itself, I'm expanding the repeats. So basically, I'm having this connected. I'm having this connected to the output volume and of the effects. Yes. So that's it. Yeah, it's okay.
Test. Yeah. Just a more general question. How do you handle, because I think like we saw you all touring as crazy, how do you handle your personal life and that, and the music you want to do? Because touring, I think, is sometimes tiring, and it's not always what you want to play. And I guess you miss sometimes some studio time and personal life, of course. So how do you handle with that?
Yeah, it's very, very difficult, and especially for me because I really love to play. I guess a lot of. I mean, I'm also happy I'm getting paid. Don't get me wrong, but I really love to play, and especially the first couple of years when I became successful, and there were a lot of requests, luckily. and I said yes to all, and then I had to do it, and it was quite difficult. Then I realized what's my capacity, which is 2 gigs a weekend, and 1 weekend per month I need to stay at home. And now what I do for the last 4 years is I take 3 to 4 months off in the beginning of the year, and that's not even time for resting. That's mostly time for studio, and yeah, spend time with my family a bit more than usual. But it's it's quite difficult decision to do, because I love to be on the road. I love meeting people. Most of all, I love to play, and with the type of career I have, you don't know for how long this can go. So I would love to earn as well. So yeah, it's difficult to say no, but I become very good at saying no. So I don't play that much in the last 4 years. I think it's just enough for the people still to not to forget about me. But that's it. It's a balance I'm still looking for.
Thank you. And yeah, my last thing, I think before to close that, was a little request. Maybe to finish, you could make a track with your wife together.
Of course, of course. Of course. Wow, thank you so much for that. Actually, we didn't know if we're gonna we didn't prepare for that, but we are doing it like that. So thank you very much. Perfect. I don't know. Test, test. Let me see if I can put some effect on the vocal, because that's a very unfamiliar mixer to me. Ah, microphone. Test, test. Test, test. Now, on the wrong. Test, test. Oh, very nice. Beautiful. Test, 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 test. Speed it up, 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 speed it up. Okay, okay, okay. Check, 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 check.
Play some chords. So when I come into his sets from, let me just say hello first. So when I come to his sets, normally it's very difficult technically, because now we don't have big speakers and we don't have big monitors on both sides except this one, so I have to be careful with this one. But the feedback is coming in, and it's crazy. It's terrible, and it's coming from the vibrations as well, especially from the lows. So yeah, we're basically trying to work a system where we kill the monitors in the booth, and we just. I have normally in-ears, and he can't hear anything. So basically, it's very intuitive as well and live.
Yeah, we're really fighting for space and for survival on stage, and we rarely have big fights in our personal life. But our biggest fight was a festival in Bulgaria we were doing. That was a Horizon Festival, and everything was going wrong. There was a photographer who was too close to my wires, and with the camera he touched my cables, and my computer crashed. Then I managed to bring back the sound, but the speakers blew out. And there was no sound guy, and then the sound guy, who's a friend of ours, he was like, yeah, I'm not even working tonight, but I'm here. So he kind of fixed it. And then I was not thinking of her. I was thinking I just have to have some steady beats so people don't leave. And she got mad because I didn't play. I was not counting, you know.
No, it was, normally we do like a build up, and at some point we kind of climax together, and the beat comes back in and etc. etc. And I'm like going, yeah, yeah, yeah. And at some point, drop the beat and it doesn't. And I'm like, man, drop something like right now, like you need to do something. And he's like, yeah, wait, my system isn't working. I'm like, oh, this is crazy, this is hell. Can I just go off stage right now? Because, you don't need me on stage right now. But, yeah, we're not gonna scream and shout. And keep it nice, yeah, for the ending of this session, maybe. Let's check. Oh, okay, thanks. Maybe not so much. Get away, speaker. So we don't get feedback. groovy. All right. Get your hands together. Get your hands together. Come on now, do party. Get your hands together. Don't be shy. Get your hands together. Get your hands together. Get your hands together. I wanna know if it's alright. I wanna know if it's alright too. Wanna know if it's alright. I wanna know if it's alright too. Wanna know if it's alright. I wanna know if it's alright too. Wanna know if it's alright. I wanna know if it's alright too. To love you. To love you. To love you, to love you, I wanna know if it's alright. Give it up for KiNK.
Thank you very much, guys. I was totally not scary. I did this couple of times, but as I said, talking is not my first choice of expression. So, yeah, I guess the first 30 minutes I was still But thank you very much for your support. I think it was turned out quite nice. You know. For nothing. For me, it's just a pleasure to, somehow steal your secrets as well and use them. Thank you very much. I'm gonna stick around as well. Yeah, thank you.